Hello folks, it's Off-Book Movie Recaps again. We will be going through a 2021 Western drama film titled Old Henry. Please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead in this video, so chill out and enjoy as I narrate for you. In Oklahoma, an unidentified outlaw is attempting to flee through the woods from three men wearing sheriff badges, the team leader, Ketchum, and his deputies, Dugan and Stillwell. The man tries to run as fast as he can, but Ketchum shoots him from a distance and is eventually captured. Ketchum kicks him a couple of times while asking him the whereabouts of another man they've been chasing, but the man refuses to confess despite the severe pain. This angers Ketchum more, and he orders his team to tie him to a horse and drag him through the field until he finally speaks. The man they're looking for is gone east. But his confession doesn't stop Ketchum from killing him instead of freeing him. Somewhere else in Oklahoma, Henry McCarty, who was born and grew up in New York but traveled and settled down on his farmhouse with his son Wyatt as a farmer. Regrettably, Henry lost his wife to tuberculosis, but his brother-in-law, Al, normally comes and helps him with the heavy work. Everything at the farmhouse is seemingly moving. However, Wyatt argues with his father regularly because he won't teach him how to shoot a gun. One morning, Henry and Wyatt suddenly saw a lost horse passing by with a blood-stained saddle but no rider on it. Wyatt takes the horse to the farm as Henry mounts his own horse and rides in the same direction, intending to investigate the area, only to find a man on the verge of death named Curry lying to the ground. With a bullet wound on the chest and shoulder, Henry covers the wound with some dust and a cloth to avoid loss of blood. He then discovers a gun and a satchel full of cash, and he becomes suspicious that the man might be an outlaw and doesn't want to get involved in such matters. But as a human, he gets empathy for the man, thus he returns, gathers everything and after removing all signs of their presence, brings Curry with him back to the farmhouse. Henry gets Wyatt's help to position Curry on a bed, and they carefully attend to his wound. That night, Henry takes the man's gun and the satchel containing the money and hides them in a concealed spot in his closet. Unknowingly, Wyatt is watching him through the opening beneath the door. Henry comes to the realization in the morning that the wound won't get better if the bullet is not removed from the man. So he decides to go to the nearest town to look for a doctor. But before leaving, he ties the patient to the bed with the rope and emphasizes to Wyatt not to get closer to him before leaving the house. When Henry is gone, Wyatt goes to his father's closet to check out the hidden compartment, only to find a satchel full of money and a gun. He grabs the gun and takes it outside to practice shooting at a bottle. Wyatt hits the target after firing several rounds. The gunshot sound makes Curry dream of the night his father's house was burned and the entire family was killed, while the killer told him to keep his head down. Wyatt returns to the house to put the gun back in the closet. However, he accidentally opens a box Henry had hidden from him all along. He finds another gun in it, and newspaper clippings talk about the serial killer nicknamed Henry and various crimes committed in New York during the early 90s. Henry comes across Ketchum and his men on the hunt, tracking Curry's whereabouts in the grasslands. Stillwell tells his team that someone has covered Curry's tracks, and the group learns that the fugitive was helped by someone, and he's not far from here. Ketchum and his men hear some noises in the prairies and shoot several rounds into the grasses. However, the protagonist had already run away before they caught him. Wyatt finds the rope around Curry's hands is not tightened properly, and when he removes the blanket, he discovers the man has untied himself. Curry asks how he reached this place, and Wyatt replies that his father helped him. Curry grabs the knife from the table, then jumps on Wyatt and swears he isn't willing to hurt him if he gives him back his satchel of money and his gun. That instant, Henry enters the house and kicks Curry to get off his son before giving him serious punches until he passes out. Then he strings Curry back to the chair and makes him wake up. Henry failed to fetch the doctor when he met Ketchum and his men on the way. Now he has decided to use a heated knife to take the bullet from Curry's body, inflicting pain on him intentionally while demanding serious answers from him. Out of pain, he cries and eventually confesses that he's a police sheriff who was shot by bank robbers, and he goes on to advise Henry and his son to leave before it's too late. Just then, Ketchum and his men appear outside the house. Henry runs to his closet to get the weapon, and when he smells it, he notices that it's already been used. So he reloads several rounds into it before walking outside. Ketchum first introduces himself as a sheriff, and the rest are his deputies. He then explains to him that they're looking for a criminal named Curry, who is very dangerous and a killer pretending to be a sheriff like him. Ketchum becomes curious about Henry's second name, McCarty. He becomes interested in it and begins asking him some questions about his personal life because there was a famous criminal in New York many years ago with the same Henry McCarty name. Henry, with a revolver in his hand, informs them he has no relatives in New York, so it can't be a relative of his. Additionally, he hasn't seen anyone fitting Curry's description on his farm either, so he orders them to leave his property. Ketchum advises Henry to lock his doors properly tonight. When they have left, Henry goes back to the house and slaps his son for having used the gun in his absence. Wyatt only wanted to know what it felt like because he's the only boy in this area who was never taught to fire a weapon, so he had to teach himself. Wyatt calls him a worthless father, stating Henry will be left alone and defenseless to die in his house because he'll leave the farm the moment he's able. Henry feels disappointed in his son's behavior and goes to interrogate the stringed man. Curry convinces Henry that he's the real sheriff, and Ketchum and his men are the bank robbers who stole the badges from him and killed his deputies. But lucky for him, he managed to recover the money from them, but was shot in the crossfire. That's why he passed out and fell off his horse while escaping, only to wake up here at this place. Curry is sure, and tells Henry that Ketchum and his men will be back. So it's better for him and his son to leave this place before they show up. Ketchum and his men are confused about what to do. They don't believe Henry, and they ask about Henry's stake in helping a stranger. Perhaps he was promised a cut of the money Stillwell claims. Dugan says they would have shot Henry down since they were 3 against 1. However, Ketchum reveals to them something weird he has noticed about the old Henry. He didn't hold a revolver like a usual farmer, and he doesn't think that he was hiding Curry because of money. Ketchum suggests that they should split the group and orders Dugan to go back to the farm to keep his eyes on Henry, as well as the rest, to get more firearms. In order to get more intel, they have to meet Henry's brother-in-law, Al, who's staying in the neighborhood. That evening, Henry orders his son to enter the house before he completes his agricultural work since it is too risky to be outside at this hour. Later, Henry feeds Curry some potato soup by himself, which makes the prisoner whine about his continued restraint. Henry probes Curry about his history in an effort to determine whether he can be trusted. Curry lists all the people he has worked with and lived with in New York, including those Henry is familiar with from his travels. He goes on to apologize for jumping on Wyatt as well, saying he was startled and perplexed when he awoke in an unfamiliar place. Curry recognizes Henry's face, but he refutes his claims to have never met him before as he chooses to at least untie one of his hands. Henry goes to refill his glass after putting his revolver on the table. Curry is supposed to grab it as a test, but he doesn't. Instead, Curry keeps relating tales to Henry from his youth, like the day he witnessed Billy the Kid being shot. Curry recognized Billy's voice from a previous dream. Henry had finally come to trust Curry after hearing the stories and seeing him resist the urge to grab the gun. Eventually Curry's other hand is released, and he receives his gun back before being told to leave his home before the criminals return. However, they are unable to continue their conversation since Dugan unexpectedly starts shooting at them through the glass. When Curry breaks the glass in response, Wyatt comes to check on what's happening, but he gets shot, and the bullet grazes his arm. Curry also gets hit in the process and immediately drops out. Then Henry gets his gun as Dugan slips beneath the house and shoots whenever Henry steps. Henry comes up with a plan for Dugan to shoot in that direction. He hands his son the gun and firing instructions to aim the chest when shooting before throwing the book on the ground while he crosses the other way. Henry goes outside after getting his rifle and starts shooting under the house till Dugan comes out and is hit in the leg before demanding answers from him. When Dugan refuses to talk, Henry leaps on him and forces him to divulge some information, but he fails and kills Dugan. He sees a gang mark on Dugan's skin and feeds the body to the pigs to make it vanish. Henry goes back to the house to attend to Wyatt's wound while avoiding Wyatt's questions about his background.
I'm who I am.
His son tells him that Henry can't expect to be respected in return because he believes his father doesn't respect him. Henry checks on Curry, who's once again having dreams about the fire. Then he takes his rifle with him outside and waits for Ketchum's men. Al goes bird hunting in the morning, which makes it simple for Ketchum and Stillwell to locate him. They inquired about his brother-in-law, Henry. However, Al refuses to answer their questions, and as soon as he tries to get his gun to defend himself, he gets knocked out by Ketchum. Henry and his son help Curry get dressed so he can leave their house. However, Curry is unfit to walk or even mount his horse, so he suggests that they leave the place while he stays behind to clean up his mess. Wyatt wants to stay to defend their property, but Henry agrees with Curry and gets his son ready to leave. That instant, when they made it outside the house, Ketchum, Stillwell, and a bunch of the paid gang were already waiting for them. Henry and Wyatt get back inside the house as Ketchum offers them a deal. If they produce Curry for him, he'll allow them to leave unharmed. The deal, which Henry doesn't buy, the gang leader makes it more complicated when he informs Henry that they've captured Al, who is beaten and bleeding. Outrageously, Henry gets his gun and hands it to his son. He orders him to stay away from the curtains and only shoot if it's necessary. Then he moves outdoors to confront Ketchum, who eventually reveals he isn't a sheriff, and all the curiosity was to know who Henry McCarty truly is. When Henry declines Ketchum's offer to exchange Al for Curry and neither he nor Al divulge any secrets, Ketchum immediately kills Al. This prompts Wyatt to move outside and shoot at them. Henry drags him back inside as the gang retaliates, hitting Curry on the leg when he walks near the window. Henry scolds Wyatt for acting without thinking, then he orders him to keep his head down, he will be alright. Upon hearing these words, Curry finally connects the dots after hearing these comments, realizing that Henry is actually Billy the Kid and that he didn't pass away the way he had been described in his dream. He survived the fire that night. It's not known to Henry, and his attention is on getting his gun, so he moves outside to begin shooting everyone in his line of sight. Henry takes more men down before running back to the house through the glass window, paving the way for Curry to use his weapon to shoot a few of Ketchum's men. Ketchum's men surround Henry's house. Thus, old Henry grabs a knife and goes out through the back door, where he stabs the outlaws before shooting the goon hiding under the house. Then he comes across Stillwell, who tries to give him a speech to feign coax while reaching his knife too. However, Henry uses his weapon to take him down before doing so. Ketchum hides behind the pig farm, where he shoots and injures Henry on the shoulder. Then Henry runs into the woods to trick Ketchum into following him. Henry hides behind a tree as he exchanges rounds with Ketchum, but Henry uses his skills to hit Ketchum and fall down. Henry approached him and finished him for good. Henry returns to the house with the bullet wounds, but lucky for him, they are not fatal. Henry tries to check on Curry to help with his wound. Henry rips Curry's sleeve off and takes a look at his injured arm, and what he discovers there shocks him. Curry shoots Henry for noticing that his tattoo is the same as Dugan's. He then admits that he was a corrupt sheriff. Together with his deputy, he had previously worked with Ketchum, however, they learned that Ketchum had crossed them and wanted to kill them on their most recent assignment. Curry and his deputy survived the attempt and escaped on their horse with bullet injuries. Curry wishes to be the one who killed Billy the Kid, but before he can shoot, Wyatt walks in and shoots him first. Wyatt then wants to fetch a doctor for his father, but Henry informs him that it's too late for that. Henry acknowledges that he hasn't always been a good father to Wyatt and that he doesn't believe in redemption, but he is confident that Wyatt will find a place for him in the new world. After saying his last words to his son, old Henry passed away. Wyatt buries his father and his uncle next to his mother, and later, he decides to pack and saddle his horse and relocate to the next village. This brings the movie to an end. Thanks for watching, but don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to watch more of my videos. Have a good day.